So I said this trick was about kind of disorder and chaos and moving things around and disrupting, and we all did different things, right? We had different numbers, we put different piles on top of different piles, all these sorts of things. Okay. But
they're going to be in order, aren't they?
actually they're not, because because I forgot a step in this trick. But how's it going for you? Jill,
Yeah.
cards in order?
No.
No. John, are your cards in order? No. Claire?
No.
No.
No. No. Well, this is awkward, isn't it? So magic. How do we make ourselves, how is magic done, right? One of the ways in which magic is done, and one of the kind of conditions for magic, okay, is that we engage in situations that are ultimately uncontrollable, right? Life is ultimately uncontrollable, and people in particular are ultimately unpredictable. I guess most of us maybe have come to that conclusion by now. Yeah, one of the things that means as a result with magic is that doing it often involves a lot of different forms of vulnerability.
Oh, nice.
So to be in situations that are unpredictable and uncontrollable, right? We make ourselves vulnerable. Now, I want to just share with you some of the ways in which in magic that I can feel a sense of vulnerability. Sometimes that will happen when the trick doesn't go well. Okay, trick doesn't work out. When I was initially doing magic, I was very concerned about tricks not working. Okay, so I am less so these days. Although if I have 2 in a row that goes bad, that's no good. But usually when one trick goes wrong, someone will step in and say something like, oh, it must have been me, or oh, that must have happened for this reason. And they find ways of making excuses and justifications for why things didn't work out. Now, it's kind of interesting that none of you did this situation. And instead, you kind of just let it hang there. So I suppose that's because you're all on mute, or maybe not. Why is that kind of interesting for me? In sociology, there's a famous theorist called Irving Goffman, and he's interested in the ways in which we do the work of social interactions. And one of the things he argues is that social interactions are just very difficult, right? There's all sorts of things that can go wrong. Maybe, someone you're in a conversation, someone stutters, or maybe they say something inappropriate that they didn't mean to, or maybe there's some strange bodily noise, or okay, or any number of things. Generally, in those situations, we often feel a kind of obligation to other people to help move the situation along. So we might pretend nothing happened. We may bring up something else. Okay, we may just find some way to smooth over the situation. And when I do a magic trick, oftentimes when it doesn't go right, audience members will kind of volunteer, okay, reasons as for why that's the case, especially in a trick like this that involves all of us doing it kind of together. But this isn't the real kind of vulnerability for me when I do magic, because yeah, if one trick doesn't work, it's fine. It's fine. Okay. Where I feel most vulnerable in magic is in this sense of kind of mutual engagement with each other. So I have performances where, you know, one memorable night I was doing some tricks, and you know, there was a person there, and basically for almost all the evening he was on his mobile phone, you know, checking something. I don't know what, just checking something. And it was this sense of kind of wanting to engage with someone, okay, and that kind of more the kind of turning away from that. Okay, and that's something where I still feel a sense of kind of vulnerability, right? The disengagement. Okay, it's this kind of condition that we have together, right? And when we don't have that connection, right, that's where I feel that's where I get a lot of worry, okay, in me as a performer. So what I'm interested in knowing is whether, as audience members, whether you feel a sense of vulnerability in these performances. Anyone want to comment on whether vulnerability is a relevant concern for you or not?
Personally, I thought it was going to go wrong all along, because there's no way my magic is up to anything of getting them in order. So I thought you were on a mission of failure as soon as you asked me to handle some cards.
Right. Okay. Okay. So
but I forgive you for that.
At that stage, if I'm interpreting you correctly, it was just more of a sense of relief and whatever, and there's no stakes or consequences here because it's all just gone terribly wrong.
Yeah, I expected no more from myself.
Would it have felt, oh.
No, you go.
I was just going to ask Gary whether it would have felt better or worse if everybody's trick had gone right except for his, or whether he was relieved that it all went wrong.
Oh.
Well,
I'm afraid I thought that this is all just part of your plan, that you wanted. I mean, this is all, I thought it was deliberate that it went wrong because, you know, this is what you're doing. You're showing us something. So I didn't feel any need to say it was my fault or normally it would go right, or to reassure you in any way, because I thought it's part of what you're doing.
There's an expectation for failure.
No, not at all. I think that was the success. I thought that you wanted it to fail, and that's what you were doing. So it's a success in that way.
Very good, very good.
I'm very interested in the fact that my cards have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in order, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in order, but not the whole works. So it looked to me like, yes, this is something that's just gone marginally wrong somewhere. There's got to be another step that puts everything in the right place. It would practically be a matter of counting them out into 2 more piles again and putting them together.
Yeah. Okay, great.
But you admitted very quickly that you had left a step out.
Yeah.
So
That was me being more anxious than I thought I was.
I think he was just pretending to be mistaken that he'd left a step out.
So let me ask this question about vulnerability then, and it's something magicians talk about. I'm just interested in how you would experience this. So some magicians anyway say, okay, it's very important to make eye contact with people as part of a performance. But at the moment of the culmination of a trick, you know, be that kind of revelation of a card, you know, is this your card? Whatever it is, when the trick kind of culminates and there's this sense of, wow. Some magicians say that it's important at that moment not to be looking at audiences. And the reasons why the reason why they say that is because at that moment of wonder, audiences can be, kind of an expression would be a bit kind of naked, right? There's this kind of moment of, oh, wow, okay? And it's a very kind of personal moment. And it's a moment where maybe people aren't able to have the kind of, let's say defenses up that they might, or they can't kind of mind what they're doing in the way in which they normally would. So what's recommended by some magicians is that you should look away for a beat and then look back to people. So I wonder, does that kind of notion of vulnerability, does that have any resonance for anyone? Does that make sense? What do people think of that?
I think that if you have put your foot in it, if you see what I mean, you could, then your vulnerability, and this is what you're saying about the trick not working. So if you look away at the point of revelation, you can't see the disappointment on people's faces or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as you say, eye contact is very important. But when you do put your foot in it, the last thing you want is eye contact, because you yourself are vulnerable, because you've made this move.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Anyone else want to come in on the notion of vulnerability?
I think if we were in a room together, then I would know you were looking straight at me, and that might make me feel vulnerable. Yeah, it doesn't work now. But in this situation, now I know you're not looking at me.
Yeah.
And so, no, I don't feel vulnerable.
Yeah, great. Okay.
I'm really aware in myself that, and this might be a personal thing, that I definitely have a background sense of that we're all in cahoots together, and I want to make this work for everyone. So I suppose there's a sense of vulnerability around, am I doing my bit right? Am I helping this work as a kind of shared experience? And definitely have that background sense. I think it's a really interesting question.
Yeah, I got held up in the mathematics because the number of combinations is 10 factorial, which is a very big number. Some magic happened. Look, they're all in order. I'm a colluder.
It is a collusion, yes, but it's mutually beneficial, hopefully. Hopefully.